couple years ago when I was in college, I was obsessed with shadows. And when I was given this sculpture assignment to make a sculpture of a landscape that's not of a landscape, I had this idea of just capturing the shadows in place. And I thought about putting paint down on the shadows. So this was my original sketch. It's really hard to tell what's going on. I'm not a classically trained artist. I studied political science. And I decided that I wanted to figure out how to do this not just on the ground, but also on people. I took my friend and I painted black shadows on him. It looked pretty terrible. And I took this photo and I was like, I want to salvage something from this. It can't just be a total disaster. So I went into iPhoto and I used the worst digital editing skills ever to erase everything except for the shadows. And I thought it turned out to be a pretty compelling image. And I showed my sculpture professor, and he just absolutely abhorred it. He was like, "This is terrible. Anyone can make something in Photoshop. I'm really not interested." And it hit me pretty hard. Even though I was studying politics, I didn't think I had a future as an artist. I still wanted to find a way to prove to him that I had an artist in me. So I tried to figure out, when I looked between the original image and the one that I photoshopped, what in it made it look like this flattened image versus the real person. And that was that you didn't see his skin, that it was white. It was that couldn't exist in real life. And so then I thought, well, what if I paint on the person's skin in a complete grayscale going from white to black? And my next try was a huge success. All of a sudden, I had achieved this effect without Photoshop. And I didn't quite understand what was going on, but I realized it must have had something to do with shadows. And I was so thankful for my professor, actually, for giving me so much shit, because otherwise I wouldn't have found a more clever means to do this. And so through this exploration of shadows, I found all these different ways of manipulating three-dimensional space to make it look like two-dimensional paintings. Wow. And so there's no major Photoshop here or anything. There's a little bit of color correcting, but through just trying to figure out how to make this work, I've developed all these different styles to do it. A lot of the secret has to do with the shadows. And if I come back, I'd love to tell you more secrets about how I make it work, especially in situations in which the shadows aren't very prevalent. Wow. Yeah. After I got better at painting, I decided that I wanted to go back to my original idea with painting shadows just on a person without putting white paint on and highlights. But I figured that I needed to figure out how to map the rest of the light on him, and not just black and white, but in shades of gray. So I took clear paint and I applied it, mixed it with the black paint. And then I took the photos to be slightly overexposed, and I was able to actually turn my friend into what looked like a drawing, using pretty much the same exact thing I had used initially, but to much greater success. Thank you.
I want everyone to think about the last time they were truly excited to be alive. And I bet it involved stress. I bet it involved getting in a car accident or getting lost, or maybe you took on a new endeavor. This is what I call the active life versus the passive life. The reason these things excite us is because humankind was meant to be lived on the precipice. Humans like a challenge, and we're good at it. You throw us in the deep end, we will swim. And people who embrace this, I say living the active life. And what I want to talk about tonight is how we can create technology that enchants this type of lifestyle. And also, with all the options this world is giving us, how are we choosing to spend our spare time? I predicted a lot of things for the future, but the one thing I never thought would happen is we'd turn into the monkey pressing the red button to get the peanut. And that's what we're becoming. Yeah. This is why we did it. This is why I helped co-found a little company called Keedle. And we wanted to create a social network that actually got people off their butts to explore their cities, which is basically the exact opposite of what social networks do. And we gave it this draconian limitation. On Keedle, the only way to see anyone's posts is you have to actually be at the place it was posted, which makes the social network about the place you're at. It makes it about this room. It turns it into a time capsule. You can only chat with the people in your vicinity, and if you give someone a private message, they have to come down here to actually get it. But what it does is it turns something that was passive into something that is active. And I've seen it. I've seen it for myself. We just went into beta, and the few people that are using it, when they use it, their faces aren't in their phones. They're looking around. And I had a friend call me the other day. He's like, John-Michael, I just went to a place in the city I'd always been meaning to go. And I never went there. And then I went there so I could take a picture with Keatle. And it's that's Walt Disney's house. That is right down the street from me. And Mickey Mouse was invented in that garage. Wow. And every day I see people walk down the street with their heads in their phone. And I don't know what's going on your phone, but it can't be more important than staring up for a couple seconds and saying, hey, maybe the most iconic figure in all of human history was invented in that garage. But, I'm sure the Twitter feed is really important as well. If I think of the greatest experiences I have of my life, not one involves the internet, not one involves a Facebook feed, not one involves a video game. They all involve doing real things with real people. And I believe we have a moral obligation to create technology that helps enchant the real world experience instead of helps us kill time. Because the real world is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much. And round of applause for all of you for making this night happen. Creative collaborators. All right, so my name is Andrew McGregor, and a few years ago, I was invited to be a judge on something called the ROUGHT Film Festival. And basically, it's a festival that tries to showcase benevolent machine-human interactions. Like one of their slogans is, what if Skynet loved us? So I was exposed to all these technologies and movies. I was like, that's really fascinating. I hadn't thought, we could do these things with machines. And I also have a background as a journalist and humanitarian worker in places where there are wars. So I was exposed to the global affliction of landmines. And basically, there are 100 million landmines in the world today. By conservative estimates, they blow some of them up about every 30 minutes. So I see some children who are suffering like this. I'm like, why can't we use robots to kind of assuage the situation? And also during my work, I was exposed to an organization called Apopo, and Apopo trains rats to sniff for landmines. Rats are ubiquitous, they're clever, they're so light they don't set off the mines. Usually they'll use dogs, and it's like a dude with a stick behind a dog. So I had this fantasy of like, what if the rat and the robot could like work together, man? So I'm like, I'm gonna make a movie. I'm also a filmmaker, so I wrote a screenplay that showcased this idea of like the rat and the robot jamming to help people not get blown up. And I took the scripts to a famous puppeteer I know, and I said, make me the most adorable machine in the world. And he came back with this. And I kind of love it. Its name is Piper. So once we had the picture and the screenplay, I was like, all right, let's make a movie. So this is LA. So I went running around and met all these great, brilliant people. And I was like, I want to make this movie to inspire engineers to help solve landmine problems. Is it possible? And because they're engineers, they're like, sure, we'll just give it the do A leads to B leads to C. I'm like, cool. And so after a while, we had a robot that could star in my movie, which is the love story between it and the rat that guide humans, these actresses on the left, through a minefield after they've gone insane. But then this is where it gets really kind of fascinating, and the Piper's on the right, that's our prototype, is once we had a working prototype, it could then work in the real world. And we kind of decided to become a company, and then we started partnering with local high schools. So we've partnered with the Palisades Charter High School, and Piper is going to be the basis of their advanced robotics class this coming fall. And we're also partnering with organizations to do landmine work in Cambodia. So basically what I think is gonna happen, it may not, but we're going for it, is that we'll have high school kids in America building the robots as part of their curriculum. They're gonna help save lives and prevent people from being blown up all around the world. And this is like totally scalable and stuff, right? And then we'll get feedback from organizations over there. They'll learn robotics. It's just a big clusterfuck of amazing. And it all happened from like, I'm gonna make a movie. That's my new company. That's what I do. I'm Andrew McGregor. My co-founders are here tonight. If you vote for me, I will bring a prototype that can literally babysit a pet for you and give you lots of ways to help people all over the world. Thank you so much. You rock, Mindshare. Thank you, Dougie.